Welcome, everyone. What's up? Great to have you here. Ready to get into some more of our Transcendental Magic class and study. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. Sound check one, two. Test, test. It's thinking about it. There we go. Come on. It's thinking about it. There we go. Nice. It thought long enough and it determined that it's working swell. So, welcome in, everyone. Once again, this is Jay Baldale here to bring you some more of our current Class A study, Éliphas Lévi's Transcendental Magic. If you're new, welcome. Great to have you here. Hopefully, you enjoy this content, and if you do, then smash the like button, smash that notification bell, because you just might like more of what we got going on over here. And if you're a repeat offender or just a returning customer, a regular, that's a way better way to say it. If you're a regular, then welcome back as always. It's great to have you all. Today, we are in for a treat. Just as soon as my stuff wants to load, it's really thinking about it today. That's fine. Oh, come on. All right, there we go. Very good, very swell. Now that should about do it. Okay, cool. What's up? And Josue Yara, what's up? Welcome. And welcome to the rest of you just popping in. So today we'll be getting into our Transcendental Magic study into Chapter 7, Allosaurus robustus. That is exactly what we'll be doing. And Allosaurus robustus. What makes you, why are you saying all that? Do you even know what's going on over here? And Josue Yara says, quick reminder, your first time too. And Allosaurus robustus says because he is the devil. Well, yeah, obviously Satan is the devil, but I don't know why you're coming in here just saying F Satan. Perhaps you're confused. And then let's see. Josue Yara, no one has been arrested yet, and police are still trying. For you, you're causing some trouble or what? Or maybe you're talking about because his poor form in training camp. Oh, I get it. I see what you're saying. Okay, okay. Because the police's training school isn't very good, that they're still trying to get better at making arrests. And MHA is awesome also comes in saying F Satan. No one likes him. Yeah, he does get a bad rap, doesn't he? He definitely gets a bad rap. Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when you're the devil? You're that pesky devil causing us all trouble, right? Causing us big, bad, mad trouble. That's for sure. All right, everybody. Well, welcome in. We clearly got some real wonderful guests appearing in today. Well, that's what you get from time to time. Well, hey, if any of you want to clarify a little more, then that's fine. And if you just want to keep saying things, then that's fine too, I guess, you know, whatever. Huh. I got Jose. I got no clue what you're talking about. I think you don't even know what you're talking about, perhaps, and that's all right. From time to time, we do that. You know, we just say things, and that seems to be the theme today. Mercury, that is what Mercury does, right? Is communicates, and so far, I don't see a whole lot of good communication going on in here, but that's no reason to get ourselves stressed out. Nah, we keep it moving. Welcome into everybody else just popping in. Happy Wednesday. Okay, so anyway, yep, we'll be getting into our chapter 7 today, as a good chunk of you will be aware of. And to some of you new people, well, that's what's going on. We're reading a book, chapter 7. It's going to tell us about the planets. So if you've ever wondered about planets, well, you might learn some things today. And we're going to also see, like usual, what these tarot cards got to say. All right, then. Tarot, Book of Thoth. What do you got to say today? What is your message for us today? To any of these new people who are still hanging around, perhaps they need a little message. Maybe that's the exact reason they popped in. Instead of just to cuss at the devil. What good is cussing at the devil gonna do? Wouldn't he be like the master of swear words? You don't think he would have better swear words for you? Why don't you pray for the devil? Who was it who said that? Mark Twain, right? He said nobody ever prays for the devil. Well, if you're such good and empowered Christians, then why don't you pray for old Satan, huh? Try to actually make a difference instead of just coming on streams where you don't really know what's going on in the first place, saying things that don't really make sense. I don't know, whatever, do whatever you want, I guess. And well, that's a perfectly fitting card. We got the jumper. We get a lot of jumpers, but maybe that's just because I've been sitting here shuffling a bunch. And Josue Yara says, join me for my roll-up. What are you rolling up, Josue? What are you rolling up? Are you rolling up? Oh, you wouldn't be talking about illegal things, would you? Well, we don't do that over here. We are good, law-abiding citizens over here. Oh, QAnon. You're like you're into QAnon. Hey, that's all right. I've known a couple friends who have lost their mind that way, and if that's the game you're playing, well, I can't stop you. You got to do what you got to do. All right, everybody. So we got 10 swords. I'm tempted to pull another because we got a jumper. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go ahead and pull another since we got a jumper, and since we got some real special guests in here today. Clearly. All right, we'll cut it and that card there. Oh, I see a cup. Oh, kinda, not really. Kinda, because it is water, because it's a queen. Well, based on the chat, what I'm seeing is pretty accurate. So ruin in the mind, air. Those rays of the sun are split off by the twins of Gemini. But those Gemini twins have a pretty intimate relationship, which you could also say you kind of see here in this Queen of Wands, where you see this higher aspect with this kind of lower aspect. And well, you could say, well, the one is kind of keeping the other in check, but it is kind of a team effort, just like Josue says. Very cool project with good teamwork. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and these particular swords, I think we've got this 10 at least once before, where it's all turned in like in the shape of that Kabbalistic tree of life, and in that Tiferet center, that sword is busted up. It is shattered, but there is still the glow to it. So maybe we could look at it. I know Zero, yeah, we did, because I remember Zero had something good to say at the time about putting a ruin to negative patterns of thought. And I'm kind of getting that mixed energy. I'm kind of getting both the light and the shadow aspect of this right now, where maybe for some of us, we're having a hard time doing that. And so instead we see this alchemy that the queen has of her water and fire over here, of her lower and higher nature, a bit of a struggle as far as that's concerned. However, I feel like I kind of get the 50-50 off it, where maybe for some others, you actually are doing that exact thing. You're putting the ruin towards your negative habits of thinking, and maybe even the ways that you've been slacking in your disciplines. You're even putting ruin towards that, to what's going to ultimately lead you to that more mastery of the lower self and of the inner world, which is why we see that queen with her eyes closed, because she is turned inward. Well, that also goes a little bit into what was said in this book yesterday too, about Lévi talking about that a real sign of the magus, someone who's really doing the dang thing, is that animals are just chill around them, even because what they've got nothing to fear. So if you've got nothing to fear from that animal nature, then yeah, you really are putting those things to ruin, and that's tremendous. So if you're on the light half of the scale right now, because we even look at that too, we see it at the top, that Kether sword, the hilt on it looks just like a scale of balance. So if you're on the light side of that scale right now, you've been finding success in this thing, then that's awesome. Keep it up. And if you're on the other end of the scale, or we get to talk about the pendulum metaphor too, if you're swinging the other way right now, well, it's going to swing back the other way, but ultimately the goal is equilibrium and balance, which you're going to find in that Tippereth from what we learned from the chapter yesterday. You're going to find in this card right here with water and fire, which is often looked at as that elemental form of alchemy, those elements to alchemize. I mean, ultimately, you want to alchemize it all. We've learned that a bit from this book already as well. But just traditionally, you'll see the red and the blue triangle drawn in the shape of the hexagram. Okay, well, that does it. That's the message today. That's the story. And we are sticking to it. Oh, all right. And Josue got his Robot Blocks avatar from his friend. Well, that's really cool. That's very neat. Okay, then, everyone. So let's crack into this thing, because one of the chapters is a little bit longer. The ritual side is a bit longer today, but the doctrine is actually rather short. So we'll probably still be right within our usual time frame. But we got to get to going. All right, so chapter 7, Zoin, and he has a G in the English alphabet. The fiery sword, Netzah Gladius. It's weird that there's just an H at the end of Netzah for him, but we'll still say it as Netzah Gladius. The septenary is the sacred number in all theogonies and in all symbols, because it is composed of the triad and the tetrad. The number 7 represents magical power in all its fullness. It is the mind reinforced by all elementary potencies. It is the soul served by nature. It is the sanctum regnum, mentioned in the Keys of Solomon and represented in the tarot by a crowned warrior who bears a triangle on his, how is that said, cuirass, and is posed upon a cube. It's like armor, his breastplate, to which 2 sphinxes are harnessed, straining in opposite directions while their heads are turned in the same way. And a note saying the septenary is said otherwise to be the great biblical number, the key of the creation, the key to the creation of Moses, and the symbol of all religion. This warrior is armed with a fiery sword and holds in his left hand a scepter surmounted by a triangle and a sphere. The cube is the philosophical stone. The sphinxes are the two forces of the great agent, corresponding to Yakin and Boaz, the two pillars of the temple. The kuros is the knowledge of divine things, which renders the wise man invulnerable to human assaults. The scepter is the magical wand. The fiery sword is the symbol of victory over the deadly sins, 7 in number, like the virtues, the conceptions of both being typified by the ancients under the figures of the 7 planets then known. Thus, faith, that aspiration towards the infinite, that noble self-reliance sustained by confidence in all virtues. The faith which in weak natures may degenerate into pride was represented by the sun. Hope, the enemy of avarice, by the moon. Charity, in opposition to luxury, by Venus. The bright star of morning and evening. Strength, superior to wrath, by Mars. Prudence, hostile to idleness, by Mercury. Temperance, opposed to gluttony, by Saturn, who was given a stone instead of his children to devour. Finally, justice, in opposition to envy, by Jupiter, the conqueror of the Titans. And Kiara LeBlanc, welcome. And Jules Catchings, welcome. Such are the symbols borrowed by astronomy from the Hellenic cultus. In the Kabbalah of the Hebrews, the sun represents the angel of light, the moon the angel of aspirations and dreams, Mars the destroying angel, Venus the angel of loves, Mercury the angel of progress, Jupiter the angel of power, Saturn the angel of the wilderness. They were named also Michael, Gabriel, Samael, Anael, Raphael, Zachariel, and Oriphiel. These governing potencies of souls shared human life during successive periods, which astrologers measured by the revolutions of the corresponding planets. But Kabbalistic astrology must not be confounded with that which is called judicial. We will explain this distinction. Infancy is dedicated to the sun, childhood to the moon, youth to Mars and Venus, manhood to Mercury, ripe age to Jupiter, and old age to Saturn. Now, humanity in general subsists under laws of development analogous to those of individual life. On this basis, Trithemius establishes his prophetic key of the 7 spirits, to which we shall refer subsequently. By means thereof, observing the analogical proportions of successive events, it is possible to predict important future occurrences with certitude, and to fix beforehand from age to age the destinies of nations and of the world. St. John, depositary of the secret doctrine of Christ, has commemorated this sequence in the Kabbalistic book of the Apocalypse, which he represents sealed with 7 seals. We meet also the 7 genii of ancient mythologies and the cups and swords of the tarot. The doctrine concealed under these emblems is pure Kabbalah, already lost by the Pharisees at the time of Christ's advent. The scenes which succeed one another in this wonderful prophetic epic are so many panticles, the keys of which are the ternary, the quaternary, the septenary, and the duodenary. Its hieroglyphic figures are analogous to those of the Book of Hermes or the Genesis of Enoch. To make use of a tentative title which expresses merely the personal opinion of the erudite William Postel, the cherub or symbolic bull which Moses placed at the gate of the Edenic world, bearing a fiery sword, is a sphinx, having a bull's body and a human head. It is the antique Assyrian sphinx, and the combat and victory of Mithras were its hieroglyphic analysis. Now, this armed sphinx represents the law of mystery, which watches at the door of initiation to warn away the profane. Voltaire, who knew nothing of all this, was highly diverted at the notion of a bull brandishing a sword. What would he have said had he visited the ruins of Memphis and Thebes? And what would the echo of past ages which slumbers in the tombs of Ramses have replied to those light sarcasms so much relished in France? The mosaic cherub represents also the great magical mystery of which the elements are expressed by the septenary without, however, giving the final word. This verbum inerabile of the sages of the Alexandrian school, this word which Hebrew Kabbalists write Yod He Vav He and interpret by Ararita, thus expressing the triplicity of the secondary principle, the dualism of means, the equal unity of the first and final principle, the alliance between the triad and the tetrad, in a word composed of 4 letters, which form 7 by means of a triple and double repetition. This word is pronounced Ararita. Oh, and there was a note on that Hebrew Ararita. The Zoharic Kabbalists at least did nothing of this kind. In common with all rabbinical Jewry, they read Adonai for Yod He Vav He and looked to that time of the Messiah when the sacred name would be restored to the renewed sanctuary. The virtue of the septenary is absolute in magic, for this number is decisive in all things. Hence, all religions have consecrated it in their rites. The 7th year was a jubilee among the Jews. The 7th day is set apart for rest and prayer. There are 7 sacraments, etc. The 7 colors of the prism and the 7 musical notes correspond also to the 7 planets of the ancients, that is, to the 7 chords of the human lyre. The spiritual heaven has never changed, and astrology has been more invariable than astronomy. The 7 planets are, in fact, the hieroglyphic symbols of the keyboard of our affections. To compose talismans of the sun, moon, or Saturn is to attach the will magnetically to signs corresponding to the chief powers of the soul. To consecrate something to Mercury or Venus is to magnetize that object according to a direct intention, whether pleasure, science, or profit be the end in view. The analogous metals, animals, plants, and perfumes are auxiliaries to this end. The 7 magical animals are A. Among birds corresponding to the divine world, the swan, the owl, the vulture, the dove, the stork, the eagle, and the pewit. B. Among fish corresponding to the spiritual or scientific world, the seal, the catfish, the pike, the mullet, the chub, the dolphin, the sepia or cuttlefish. C. Among quadrupeds corresponding to the natural world, the lion, the cat, the wolf, the he-goat, the monkey, the stag, and the mole. The blood, fat, liver, and gall of these animals serve in enchantments. Their brain combines with the perfumes of the planets, and it is recognized by ancient practice that they possess magnetic virtues corresponding to the 7 planetary influences. The talismans of the 7 spirits are engraved either on precious stones such as the carbuncle, crystal, diamond, emerald, agate, sapphire, and onyx, or upon metals such as gold, silver, iron, copper, fixed mercury, pewter, and lead. The Kabbalistic signs of the 7 spirits are, for the sun, a serpent with the head of a lion; for the moon, a globe divided by 2 crescents; for Mars, a dragon biting the hilt of a sword; for Venus, a lingam; for Mercury, the hermetic caduceus and the cynocephalus; for Jupiter, the blazing pentagram in the talons or beak of an eagle; for Saturn, a lame and aged man, or a serpent curled about the sunstone. All these symbols are found on engraved stones of the ancients, and especially on those talismans of the Gnostic epochs which are known by the name of Abraxas. In the collection of the talismans of Paracelsus, Jupiter is represented by a priest in ecclesiastical garb, while in the tarot he appears as a grand hierophant crowned with a triple tiara, holding a 3-barred cross in his hands, forming the magical triangle and representing at once the scepter and key of the 3 worlds. By collating all that has been said about the unity of the triad and tetrad, we shall find all that remains to be told concerning the septenary, that grand and complete magical unity composed of 4 and 3. And a note saying, with reference to the plants and colors of the septenary employed in magnetic experiences, see the erudite work of Monsieur Ragon on La Maçonnerie Occulte. And that's a note from Éliphas Lévi instead of A.E. Waite. All right, and that already does it for our Doctrine chapter on the 7. So now we will bump back to the Ritual, which is the longer one. All right, then. So, chapter 7 of the ritual, the septenary of talismans. Ceremonies, vestments, perfumes, characters, and figures being, as we have stated, necessary to apply imagination to the education of the will, the success of magical works depends upon the faithful observation of all the rites, which are in no sense fantastic or arbitrary. They have been transmitted to us by antiquity and obtained permanently by the essential laws of analogical realization and of the correspondence which interbinds ideas and forms. Having spent many years in consulting and comparing all the most authentic grimoires and magical rituals, we have succeeded, not without labor, in reconstituting the ceremonial of universal and primeval magic. The only serious books which we have seen upon this subject are in manuscript, written in conventional characters which we have deciphered by the help of the polygraphy of Trithemius. The importance of others consists wholly in the hieroglyphs and symbols which adorn them, the truth of the images being disguised under the superstitious fictions of a mystifying text. Such, for example, is the Enchiridion of Pope Leo III, which has never been printed with its true figures, and we have reconstructed it for our own use after an ancient manuscript. The rituals known under the name of Clavicles of Solomon are very numerous. Many have been printed, while others remain in manuscripts transcribed with great care. An exceedingly fine and elegantly written example is preserved in the Imperial Library. It is enriched with panticles and characters, most of which have been reproduced in the magical calendars of Tycho Brahe and Duchenteau. Lastly, there are printed clavicles and grimoires which are catchpenny mystifications and impostures of dishonest publishers. The book, so notorious and decried formerly under the name of Little Albert, belongs mainly to the latter category. Some talismanic figures and some calculations borrowed from Paracelsus are its only serious parts. In any matter of realization and ritual, Paracelsus is an imposing magical authority. No one has accomplished works greater than his, and for that very reason he conceals the virtue of ceremonies and merely teaches in his occult philosophy the existence of that magnetic agent which is omnipotence of will. He sums also the whole science of characters in two signs, the macrocosmic and the microcosmic stars. It was sufficient for the adepts, and it was important not to initiate the vulgar. Paracelsus, therefore, did not teach the ritual, but he practiced, and his practice was a sequence of miracles. We have spoken of the magical importance of the triad and tetrad. Their combination constitutes the great religious and Kabbalistic number which represents the universal synthesis and comprises the sacred septenary. In the belief of the ancients, the world is governed by seven secondary causes, secundii, as Trimethius calls them, which are the universal forces designated by Moses under the plural name of Elohim, gods. These forces, analogous and contrary to one another, produce equilibrium by their contrasts and rule the movement of the spheres. The Hebrews termed them the seven great archangels, giving them the names of Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Anael, Samael, Zadkiel, and Oriphiel. And there's a note saying, according to another scheme of attributions, Michael is the angel of truth and proclaims the glory of the one God. Gabriel is the prince of the mysteries. Raphael is prince of sciences, who bears witness to the unity of truth. Sakiel Melech is the king of priesthoods and sacrifices. Anael governs kingdoms and kings of earth, proclaiming the unity of power. Cassiel is the angel of solitude and tears, but he shows forth the unity of the eternal kingdom. Samael proclaims the unity of justice. The Christian Gnostics named the four last Uriel, Barakiel, Sealtiel, and Yehudiel, which is interesting because I was looking up some of those because I hadn't heard of Sealtiel and Yehudiel, so those come from Orthodox cosmology. Other nations attributed to these spirits the government of the seven chief planets and assigned to them the names of their chief divinities. All believed in their relative influence. Astronomy divided the antique heaven between them and allotted the 7 days of the week to their successive rule. Such is the reason of the various ceremonies of the magical week and the septenary cultus of the planets. We have observed previously that in this sense the planets are only signs. They have the influence which universal faith attributes because they are more truly the stars of the human mind than the orbs of heaven. The sun, which antique magic always regarded as fixed, could be only a planet for the vulgar. Hence it represents that day of rest in the week which we term Sunday without knowing why, the day of the sun among the ancients. The seven magical planets correspond to the seven colors of the spectrum and the seven notes of the musical octave. They represent also the seven virtues and, by contrast, the seven vices of Christian ethics. And there's a note from saying, compare la livre rouge. The seven planets operate in the universal harmony like the seven notes in musical harmony, and the sun, which is no planet but rather a central star, acts like the leader of an orchestra, regulating time and measure. The seven sacraments correspond equally to this great universal septenary. Baptism, which consecrates the element of water, is in analogy with the moon. Ascetic penance is under the auspices of Samael, the angel of Mars. Confirmation, which imparts the spirit of understanding and communicates to the true believer the gift of tongues, is under the auspices of Raphael, the angel of Mercury. The Eucharist substitutes the sacramental realization of God made man for the empire of Jupiter. Marriage is consecrated by the angel Anael. The purifying genius of Venus. Extreme unction is the safeguard of the sick about to fall under the scythe of Saturn. And orders, consecrating the priesthood of light, is marked more especially by the characters of the sun. Almost all these analogies were observed by the learned Dupuy, who thence concluded that all religions were false, instead of recognizing the sanctity and perpetuity of a single dogma, ever reproduced in the universal symbolism of successive religious forms. He failed to understand the permanent revelation transmitted to human genius by the harmonies of nature, and beheld only a catalogue of errors in this chain of speaking images and eternal truths. Magical works are also seven in number. 1. Works of light and riches under the auspices of the sun. 2. Works of divination and mystery under the invocation of the moon. 3. Works of skill, science, and eloquence under the protection of Mercury. 4. Works of wrath and chastisement consecrated to Mars. 5. Works of love favored by Venus. 6. Works of ambition and intrigue under the influence of Jupiter. 7. Works of malediction and death under the patronage of Saturn. In theological symbolism, the sun represents the word of truth, the moon, religion itself, Mercury, the interpretation and science of mysteries, Mars, justice, Venus, mercy and love, Jupiter, the risen and glorious Savior, Saturn, God the Father, or the Jehovah of Moses. In the human body, the sun is analogous to the heart, the moon to the brain, Jupiter to the right hand, Saturn to the left, Mars to the left foot, Venus to the right, Mercury to the generative organs, whence an androgyne figure is sometimes attributed to this planet. In the human face, the sun governs the forehead, Jupiter the right, and Saturn the left eye. The moon rules between both at the root of the nose, the two alae of which are governed by Mars and Venus. Finally, the influence of Mercury is exercised over mouth and chin. Among the ancients, these notions constituted the occult science of physiognomy, afterwards recovered imperfectly by Lavater. The magus who intends undertaking the works of light must operate on a Sunday from midnight to 8 in the morning, or from 3 in the afternoon to 10 in the evening. He should wear a purple vestment with tiara and bracelets of gold. The altar of perfumes and the tripod of sacred fire must be encircled by wreaths of laurel, heliotrope, and sunflowers. The perfumes are cinnamon, strong incense, saffron, and red sandal. The ring must be of gold with a chrysolith or ruby. The carpet must be of lion skins, the fans of sparrowhawk feathers. On Monday, the robe is white, embroidered with silver, and having a triple collar of pearls, crystals, and selenite. The tiara must be covered with yellow silk. emblazoned with silver characters forming the Hebrew monogram of Gabriel as given in the occult philosophy of Agrippa. The perfumes are white sandal, camphor, amber, aloes, and pulverized seed of cucumber. The wreaths are mugwort, moonwort, and yellow ranunculus. Tapestries, garments, and objects of a black color must be avoided, and no metal except silver should be worn on the person. On Tuesday, a day for the operations of vengeance, the color of the vestment should be that of flame, rust, or blood, with belt and bracelets of steel. The tiara must be bound with gold, the wand must not be used, but only the magical dagger and the sword. The wreaths must be of absinthe and rue, the ring of steel with an amethyst for precious stone. On Wednesday, a day favorable for transcendent science, the vestment should be green or shot with various colors. The necklace of pearls and hollow glass beads containing mercury, the perfumes benzoin, mace, and storax, the flowers narcissus, lily, herb mercury, fumitory, and marjoram. The jewel should be the agate. On Thursday, a day of great religious and political operations, the vestment should be scarlet, and on the forehead should be worn a tablet with the character of the spirit of Jupiter, and the three words Giarar, Bethor, and Samgabio. The perfumes are incense, ambergris, balm, grain of paradise, masses, and saffron. The ring must be enriched with an emerald or sapphire. The wreaths and crowns should be oak, poplar, fig, and pomegranate leaves. On Friday, the day for amorous operations, the vestment should be of sky blue, the hangings of green and rose, the ornaments of polished copper, the crowns of violets, the wreaths of roses, myrtle, and olive. The ring should be enriched with a turquoise, lapis lazuli, and beryl will answer for tiara and clasps. The fans must be of swan's feathers, and the operator must wear upon his breast a copper talisman with the character of Haniel, and the words Aviva Vadalilith. On Saturday, a day of funeral operations, the vestment must be black or brown, with characters embroidered in orange or black silk. Round the neck must be worn a lamina of lead, with the character of Saturn and the words Almalek, Aphiel, and Zerahiel. The perfume should be diagridium, scamoni, alum, sulfur, and asafoetida. The ring should be adorned with an onyx. The garlands should be of ash, cypress, and hellebore. On the onyx of the ring during the hours of Saturn, the double head of Janus should be engraved with the consecrated owl. Such are the antique magnificences of the secret cultists of the Magi. With similar appointments, the great magicians of the Middle Ages proceeded to the daily consecration of talismans corresponding to the seven genii. We have defined a pantacle as a synthetic character resuming the entire magical doctrine in one of its special conceptions. It is therefore the full expression of a completed thought and will. It is the signature of a spirit. The ceremonial consecration of this sign attaches to it still more strongly the intention of the operator and establishes a veritable magnetic chain between himself and the pantacle. Pantacles may be drawn upon virgin parchment, paper, or metals. What is termed a talisman is a sheet of metal bearing either pantacles or characters and having received a special consecration for a defined intention. In a learned work on magical antiquities, Gaffarel has demonstrated scientifically the real power of talismans, and the confidence in their virtue is otherwise so strong in nature that we carry keepsakes of those we love, persuaded that they will preserve us from danger and increase our happiness. Talismans are made of the seven Kabbalistic metals, and when the days and hours are favorable, the required and determined signs are engraved thereon. The figures of the seven planets with their magical squares according to Paracelsus are found in the Little Albert. They are one of the very few serious items in this collection of vulgar magic. It should be observed that Paracelsus replaces the figure of Jupiter by that of a priest, a substitution not wanting in a well-defined mysterious intention. But the allegorical and mythological figures of the seven spirits have become too classical and too familiar for their successful use on talismans. We must recur to more recondite and pregnant signs. The pentagram should be engraved invariably upon one side of the talisman, with a circle for the sun, a crescent for the moon, for Mars, a sword, a G for Venus, for Jupiter a crown, and a scythe for Saturn. The reverse must bear the sign of Solomon, that is, the six-pointed star composed of two superposed triangles. In the center, there is placed a human figure for the talismans of the sun, a chalice for those of the moon, a dog's head for those of Mercury, an eagle's for those of Jupiter, a lion's head for those of Mars, a dove's for those of Venus, and a bull's or goat's for those of Saturn. The names of the seven angels must be added in Hebrew, in Arabic, or in magical characters like those of the alphabet of Trithemius. The two triangles of Solomon may be replaced by the double cross of the wheels of Ezekiel, which is found on a great number of ancient panticles and is, as we have observed in our doctrine, the key to the trigrams of Fohi. Precious stones may be also employed for amulets and talismans, but all objects of this nature, whether metals or gems, must be kept carefully in silken bags of a color analogous to that of the spirit of the planet, perfumed with the perfumes of the corresponding day, and preserved from all impure glances and contacts. Thus, panticles and talismans of the sun must not be seen or touched by deformed or misshapen persons, or by immoral women. Those of the moon are profaned by the looks and hands of debauched men and menstruating females. Those of Mercury lose their virtue if seen or touched by salaried priests. Those of Mars must be concealed from cowards. Those of Venus from depraved men and men under a vow of celibacy. Those of Jupiter from the impious. Those of Saturn from virgins and children. Not that their looks or touches can ever be impure, but because the talisman would bring them misfortune and thus lose all its virtue. Crosses of honor and other kindred decorations are veritable talismans which increase personal value and merit. They are consecrated by solemn investiture, and public opinion can impart to them a prodigious power. Sufficient attention has not been paid to the reciprocal influence of signs or ideas, or of signs on ideas and of ideas on signs. It is not less true that the revolutionary work of modern times, for example, has been resumed symbolically in its entirety by the Napoleonic substitution of the Star of Honor for the Cross of St. Louis. It is the pentagram in place of the labarum. It is the reconstitution of the symbol of light. It is the Masonic resurrection of Adon Haram. They say that Napoleon believed in his star, and could he have been persuaded to explain what he meant thereby, it would have proved to be his genius. He was right, therefore, in adopting the pentagram as his sign, because it is the symbol of human sovereignty acquired by intelligent initiative. The mighty soldier of the Revolution knew little, but he divined almost everything. So was he the greatest instinctive and practical magician of modern times. The world is still full of his miracles, and the country people will never believe that he is dead. Blessed and indulgenced objects, touched by holy images or venerable persons, chaplets from Palestine, the Agnus Dei, composed of the wax of the paschal candle and the annual remnants of holy chrism, scapulas and medals are all true talismans. One such medal has become popular in our own day, and even those who are devoid of religion suspend it from the necks of their children. Moreover, its figures are so perfectly Kabbalistic that it is truly a marvelous double pantacle. On the one side is the great initiatrix, the heavenly mother of the Zohar, the Isis of Egypt, the Venus Urania of the Platonists, the Mary of Christianity, throned upon the world and setting one foot upon the head of the magical serpent. And we've got a note on that. saying, to venerate Providence under the symbol of a mother, to exalt the purity of love under the figure of a virgin, to raise the woman towards God, to declare immaculate that Mary who sanctifies marriage. All this is to be more than Christian. It is to be Catholic, since the family is universal. She extends her two hands in such a manner as to form a triangle, of which her head is the apex. Her hands are open and radiant, thus making a double triangle with all its rays directed towards the earth, evidently representing the emancipation of intelligence by labor. On the other side is the double tau of the Hierophants, the lingam with the double cateche or triple phallus supported with interlacement and repeated insertion by the Kabbalistic and Masonic M, representing the square between the two pillars, Yakin and Boaz. Below are placed upon the same level two loving and suffering hearts, encircled by 12 pentagrams. Everyone will tell you that the wearers of this metal do not attach such significance to it, but on this account it is only more absolutely magical, having a dual sense and consequently a double virtue. The ecstatic, on the authority of whose revelations this talisman was engraved, had already beheld it existing perfectly in the astral light, which demonstrates once more the intimate connection of ideas and signs, giving a new sanction to the symbolism of universal magic. The greater the importance and solemnity brought to bear on the execution and consecration of talismans and pantacles, the more virtue they acquire, as will be understood upon the evidence of the principles which we have established. Such consecration should take place on the days that we have indicated, with the apparatus which we have given in detail. Talismans are consecrated by the 4 exorcised elements after conjuring the spirits of darkness by the conjuration of the 4. Then, taking up the pantacle and sprinkling it with some drops of magical water, say, in the name of Elohim and by the spirit of the living waters, be thou unto me a sign of light and a sacrament of will. Presenting it to the smoke of the perfumes, by the brazen serpent which destroyed the serpents of fire, be thou, etc. So you'll still say that. Be thou unto me a sign of light and a sacrament of will. Breathing 7 times upon the pantacle or talisman. By the firmament and the spirit of the voice, be thou, etc. Lastly, placing some particles of purified earth or salt, triad-wise, upon it, in the salt of the earth, and by the virtue of eternal life, be thou, etc. Then recite the conjuration of the 7 as follows, casting alternately a pastille of the 7 perfumes into the sacred fire. In the name of Michael, may Jehovah command thee and drive thee hence, Havayoth. In the name of Gabriel, may Adonai command thee and drive thee hence, Belial. In the name of Raphael, be gone before Elohim Sachaviel. By Samael, Zabaoth, and in the name of Elohim Gibor, get thee hence, Adramelech. By Zachariel and Sachiel Melech, be obedient unto Elva Samgabio. By the divine and human name of Shaddai, and by the sign of the pentagram which I hold in my right hand, in the name of the angel Haniel, by the power of Adam and of Eva, who are Yotheva, be gone Lilith. Let us rest in peace, Nahemah. By the holy Elohim, and by the names of the genie Cassiel, Sehaltiel, Aphiel, and Zerahiel, at the command of Oriphiel, depart from us, Moloch. We deny thee our children to devour. Man, imagine if those people stuck around who came in cussing on Satan. Ha! You guys got scared and didn't even realize what was going on. That's all right. The most important magical instruments are the wand, the sword, the lamp, the chalice, the altar, and the tripod. In the operations of transcendental and divine magic, the lamp, wand, and chalice are used. In the works of black magic, the wand is replaced by the sword and the lamp by the candle of Cardin. We shall explain this difference in the chapter devoted to black magic. Let us come now to the description and consecration of the instruments. The magical wand, which must not be confounded with the simple divining rod, with the fork of necromancers, or the trident of Paracelsus, the true and absolute magical wand must be one perfectly straight branch of almond or hazel, cut at a single blow with the magical pruning knife or golden sickle, before the rising of the sun. At that moment when the tree is ready to blossom, it must be pierced through its whole length without splitting or breaking it, and a long needle of magnetized iron must occupy its entire length. To one of the extremities must be fitted a polyhedral prism, cut in a triangular shape, and to the other a similar figure of black resin. 2 rings, one of copper and one of zinc, must be placed at the center of the wand, which afterwards must be gilt at the resin and silvered at the prism end as far as the ring's center. It must then be covered with silk, the extremities not included. On the copper ring, these characters must be engraved. And then we've got some Hebrew here, but I don't know what that one says. And then on the zinc ring, and then we've got some more Hebrew characters. The consecration of the wand must last 7 days, beginning at the new moon, and should be made by an initiate possessing the great arcana, and having himself a consecrated wand. This is the transmission of the magical secret, which has never ceased since the shrouded origin of the transcendent science. The wand and the other instruments, but the wand above all, must be concealed with care, and under no pretext should the magus permit them to be seen or touched by the profane. Otherwise they will lose all virtue. The mode of transmitting the wand is one of the arcana of science, the revelation of which is never permitted. The length of the magical wand must not exceed that of the operator's arm. The magician must never use it unless he is alone, and even then should not touch it without necessity. Many ancient magi made it the length of the forearm and concealed it beneath their long mantles, showing only the simple divining rod in public, or some allegorical scepter made of ivory or ebony, according to the nature of the operations. Cardinal Richelieu, always athirst for power, sought through his whole life the transmission of the wand without being able to find it. His Kabbalist Gaffarel could furnish him with sword and talisman alone. This was probably the secret motive for the cardinal's hatred of urban grandeur, who knew something of his weakness. The secret and prolonged conversations of Labourdemont with the unhappy priest some hours before his final torture, and those words of a friend and confidant of the latter as he went forth to death. "You are an able man, monsieur. Do not destroy yourself. Afford us considerable food for thought." Okay, and then real quick, there's actually an image on this other page of these magical tools or weapons, however you look at it, magical instruments, he has it titled. So you can see the lamp, you can see the sword, the rod, the dagger over here looks kind of like a crescent moon. The triangle here, these ones looking kind of like the Hebrew sheen. The symbols of the planets here. The snake biting its tail around the base. And then the hexagram, the sign of the macroprosopus on there as well. That one's pretty rad. Okay. The magical wand is the verendum of the magus. It must not even be mentioned in any clear and precise manner. No one should boast of its possession, nor should its consecration ever be transmitted except under conditions of absolute discretion and competence. The sword is less occult and is made in the following manner. It must be of pure steel, with a cruciform copper hilt having 3 pommels, as represented in the Enchiridion of Leo III, or with the guard of a double crescent as in our own figure. On the middle knot of the guard, which should be covered with a golden plate, the sign of the macrocosm must be inscribed on one side and that of the microcosm on the other. The Hebrew monogram of Michael, as found in Agrippa, must be engraved on the pommel. On one side of the blade must be these characters, and then there's that Hebrew there to go on that side of the blade. And on the other, the monogram of the labrum of Constantine, followed by the words Vince in hoc Deo duce comite ferro. For the authenticity and exactitude of these figures, see the best ancient editions of the Enchiridion. But then there's a note from Waite saying, see, however, my book of ceremonial magic, as regards supposed codices of the Enchiridion, we have seen that the document is ascribed fraudulently, and as regards ancient editions, the printed texts are not numerous, nor is there much variation in the engraved designs. If Lévi references to the manuscripts, he should have put his point more clearly. All right. The consecration of the sword must take place on a Sunday during the hours of the sun under the invocation of Michael. The blade of the sword must be placed in a fire of laurel and cypress. It must be dried and polished with ashes of the sacred fire, moistened with the blood of a mole or serpent, the following words being said. Be thou unto me as the sword of Michael, by virtue of Elohim Sabaoth. May spirits of darkness and reptiles of earth flee away from thee. It is then fumigated with the perfumes of the sun and wrapped up in silk, together with branches of vervain, which should be burned on the seventh day. The magical lamp must be composed of the four metals, gold, silver, brass, and iron. The pedestal should be of iron, the mirror of brass, the reservoir of silver, the triangle at the apex of gold. It should be provided with two branches in such a manner that each arm has a triple conduit for the oil. There must be 9 wicks in all, 3 at the top and 3 in each branch. The seal of Hermes must be engraved on the pedestal, over which must be the two-headed androgyne of Kunrath. A serpent devouring its own tail must encircle the lower part. The sign of Solomon must be inscribed on the reservoir. 2 globes must be fitted to this lamp, one adorned with a transparency representing the 7 genii, while the other, of larger size and duplicated, should contain variously tinted waters in 4 compartments. The whole instrument should be placed in a wooden pillar, revolving on its own axis and permitting a ray of light to escape as required and fall on the altar smoke at the moment of the invocations. This lamp is a great aid to the intuitive working of slow imaginations and for the immediate creation in the presence of magnetized persons of forms alarming in their actuality, which, being multiplied by the mirrors, will magnify suddenly and transform the operator's cabinet into a vast hall filled with visible souls. The intoxication of the perfumes and the exaltation of the invocations will change this fantasia into a real dream. Persons known formerly will be recognized, phantoms will speak, and something extraordinary and unexpected will follow the closing of the light within the pillar and the increase of the fumigations. Okay, and then a pretty good note on that, and then we're done, says, with the elaborate procedure of this section, it will be instructive to contrast the almost derisive qualifications and reductions of Le Grand Arcane in connection with the hidden mystery and pseudo-incommunicable secret of magic. Éliphas Lévi has been reciting the meaning behind the Odyssey till he pictures his readers, or those among them who are addicted to tales of a tub, protesting that he has forgotten about magic. Are there no talismans, no herbs, no roots which one can work wonders? Are there no mysterious formulae which open sealed doors and compel spirits to appear? He replies by calling them children and reminding them that in his previous works he has recognized the relative efficacy of formulae, herbs, and talismans. but these are petty procedures referable to the lesser mysteries. He is dealing now with great moral forces, not with material instruments, not with magnetic aids. Those who have recourse to ceremonial magic, those who consult soothsayers, are like some others who hope to supplant true religion by multiplying devotional practices. They are comparable also to people who cherish a passion condemned by reason, but which they prefer to reason. They have recourse, therefore, to irrational oracles, to derive hope therefrom, to still the voice of conscience and offer peace to the heart. Well, all right then. So see, that's one of those things where I would say that that's where bringing money into the thing is definitely fine, because I don't think a whole lot of people are like metallurgists, blacksmiths. So you're probably not going to be able to make like these brazen lamps and swords and daggers and all that on your own. But again, you know what's cool about when you like seek out certain groups? Now I know somebody who does do that stuff. He actually made a sword, like a real sick sword. He made some of his own rings, all of that. So and then I know that I could just go hang out and have these things made by somebody I know in person, instead of, I mean, sometimes your local shops will still carry those things, and yep, you can also buy them online. But like even Dion Fortune said, um you know that a couple things might be certain in those cases, that these things are either just going to be worthless, like as in they're not going to actually work, um because they're just made with the wrong stuff, or because the person didn't know how to charge them up right. I mean, but I do know, I'm not saying, because I know for sure there are some really good products available online. So that's where you got to really use your discernment, your critical thinking, right, that you're cultivating as a practitioner, to determine, does this person seem to do they know their stuff. So you know, you might not be able to tell that by a glance, because it might look like it if you don't know any better. So that's where some study of your own, and perhaps even contacting these people and having some conversations, might be worthwhile. Because if they just kind of try to shoo you away, like you're so annoying for trying to figure out if this is actually worth spending, you know, potentially like a couple $100 on a ring and a dagger and whatever else, then you probably don't want to, you know, spend your money on somebody who's going to treat you that way. But I guess, you know, you can do whatever you want at the end of the day, when it comes to that type of stuff. But if they otherwise are actually pretty cool and are like, oh, hey, yeah, I'd be happy to answer your questions. And oh, based on your questions, also, you know, you might actually very specifically want this ring and this dagger I made, or these, I made some wands, and yep, I went through all this trouble. But I guess if certain things like the wands and stuff you could do yourself, you're just gonna have to find the means to do it. But it's been given in here how to go about it. But I know for everybody, that's just too much work. That's just way too much work. Well, again, why are you participating in the great work if you don't want to work? Seems like worthwhile questions to ask. But that does it for our study for the day, at the very least, and hopefully giving you a little more insight into how to go about some of this stuff. Because yeah, unless I mean, I could probably hang out with that dude enough that I'm sure he would happily teach me that stuff. That dude's also a beekeeper, so that means wax. That means beeswax, and you can use beeswax for definitely magical things, as well as like honey. So hey, there are people out there who don't seem to mind the work, but it just requires, like, you know, not sitting on your phone all the time, and not just consuming reels and AI slop, and, you know, all that type of stuff. But I'm preaching to the choir, yeah. Okay, so anyway, this has been a wonderful session, learning a bit more about planetary stuff, about talismans, about magical instruments, and I appreciate your company. To some of you newcomers coming in, well, yep, some of you got scared away at the door, and that's the way it goes. See, the stuff protects itself. And some of you hung around a little longer, and it was good to have your company while it lasted. I think eventually you got scared off as well, and that's fine. Because at a certain point in time, well, then it will be your time. Your time will come. And maybe this isn't the method for that. Maybe you're somebody who's going to end up finding a different path up the mountain. So blessings to you either way. Much love to everybody, to the newcomers, to the regulars, to all of you. Thank you. And I will see you tomorrow. We'll be back into our other class. We'll be back to the Dhammapada, to the Buddhist lessons, which is certainly another path up the mountain. And so if you're looking forward to that, then wonderful. I will see you there. And I'm wishing you well always. This has been Jay Baldale. Much love, many blessings. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.